I'm back with your next class. In today's class, we are going to start a new chapter, that is Anatomy of Flowering Plants. Now, in the last chapter, you have learned about morphology, isn't it? And it was all about studying the external features of the plant, right? Likewise, anatomy. It is all about studying the internal features or internal organizations present in the body of an organism. Okay, so first and foremost, you must learn what is anatomy. Anatomy is the study of internal features or organization of an organism. Understood? So under anatomy, what exactly do we have to study? We study that what are the different cells present in the body of an organism, right? Whether the organism is prokaryotic or eukaryotic, what are the types of cells present? Likewise, what are the approximate number of cells that might be making up the body of an organism? Next, also say how the cells are communicating with one another, how are they forming internal units that can be referred as tissues. And again, we can also learn under this that how the tissues would later on form organs. So all of these things that goes on inside the body that are related to the internal organizations of the body falls under anatomy. Understood? So this is what we are going to discuss in this chapter, that is Anatomy of Flowering Plants. We'll be learning in details all the internal organizations, the tissues or organs that are present in the body of angiosperms of flowering plants. Okay, so here is the introduction. See, the study of internal structures of organism is called anatomy. Okay, now it includes the study of cells present in the body, whether eukaryotic or prokaryotic. I think all of you know what is eukaryote and prokaryote, isn't it? Eu means true, okay, and kary means nucleus. So eukaryotic organisms means organisms which have true nucleus, means their nucleus would remain, or their genetic material would remain confined inside a nuclear membrane. The nuclear membrane is present. But prokaryote, pro means before and kary means nucleus. So that means these are the organisms which are primitive, which had evolved before a true nucleus have shown up. So in that case, prokaryotic organisms do not bear a nuclear membrane. Their genetic material would simply lie naked in the central cytoplasm. Understood? That's the main difference. Of course, there are many other differences, but this being the most important. Okay. Next, approximate number of cells in the body, likewise their organization into tissues and then tissues into organs, which I have already mentioned to you, right? All these internal organizations when we study, that falls under anatomy. Okay, next. So what is the importance of anatomy? What exactly does anatomy convey to us? Why do we study anatomy? That's because it helps us to classify. It's a very, very important term. That's classify. Classification you have already learned in class 9 or 10, isn't it? So classification, if you remember, is all about forming groups of organisms based on their similarities and dissimilarities, isn't it? Like we are trying to put together similar organisms and we are trying to separate the dissimilar ones. And while we do so, our study of the living world becomes easier, because after all, there are millions of species and remembering all of them is not going to be possible by one person, isn't it? So to keep it simple or to keep it or make it easier, we try to classify the organisms. We try to form them into some units, and that's what is going to be allowed by anatomy. Okay, how is it going to be allowed? See, when you will be able to learn the internal organizations of the plants or of any organisms, you will be able to learn that how internally two organisms are similar or how they are dissimilar. Accordingly, you will be able to easily classify them. So this becomes the anatomy, it becomes a very, very important parameter under classification. Understood? Now, next, it also helps us to study various adaptations of the plants to survive in different conditions. Alright? So see, anatomy doesn't only help you understand the internal structures, but due to those differences in internal structures, the plants are also able to cope up with various different mechanisms or different adaptations. Like, we can see different types of plants in our surrounding, right? Some of them are able to withstand extreme dry conditions. Likewise, some of the plants are found in complete wet conditions, isn't it? So different kind of extreme habitat the plants are able to adapt to. Now, how are those adaptations possible? They are only being possible due to certain changes in the internal organization, isn't it? So not only the anatomy is helping you to classify organisms, but of course it is also helping you to study their adaptations, helping you to know why certain plants are able to withstand certain conditions so comfortably. Understood? So these being the importance of anatomy and many more, and eventually as the chapter proceeds you will be able to understand those. Fine. So in that case, this being the introduction, let us now finally start our chapter with a very important term, that is tissues. So now let us start with tissues. Okay. See, tissues are a group of cells. They may be similar or dissimilar, but then they have something in common, and that is their function. They are going to function together. They are going to behave as a unit. Okay, their function is going to remain the same. Alright, now these tissues, again, there are many types of tissues within the plant body which will again interact to allow the plant to survive. Okay, so let's see this. The definition to tissues: a group of structurally similar or dissimilar cells. It's never that the tissues means all similar cells will make it. No. Do remember, this is a very important point. Tissues may be made up of similar or dissimilar cells that performs a common function. The function is going to remain the same. And also they have a common origin. So group of cells which may be similar or dissimilar, but they perform a common function and have a common origin, would be referred as tissue. Okay. Now, each tissue has a specific function to perform, and different types of tissues of the plant body coordinate with one another to maintain the life of a plant. Understood this? Otherwise, forming an organization, complex organization, or maintaining the survival won't be possible. Next. Now the plant body, the angiosperms of flowering plant that we are discussing, the plant body consists of mainly two types of tissues within. That is meristematic tissues and permanent tissues. Okay. Now what is the basis of this differentiation? The basis is nothing but the power of division. Do remember. That means once the tissue is being formed, the tissue is giving rise to new cells, whether those cells are able to divide or it is not able to divide. Like for example, in case of meristematic tissues, they are going to retain their power of division. The cells which are going to be formed by these tissues, they will be able to divide continuously. On the other hand, for permanent tissues, these cells, they will be specified, or they will have a specific structural, they will be specifically designed, or they would have a specific structure and a function, and they would not perform division. They would either permanently or sometimes temporarily lose their power of division. That's what is the main criteria. Do remember, criteria that means is power of division. For meristms, it would remain. For permanent, it would not remain. Understood? Now, let us start in details the discussion about meristematic tissues. Now, before we go into the discussion regarding the meristematic tissues in details, I thought it would be much more easier for you to understand the whole scenario of the chapter by this flow diagram. Here you will get an idea that which of the tissues are going to fall under which particular category, so that you will get an overall idea about the whole chapter. Okay, so that is, see, plant tissues are broadly categorized into two divisions: meristematic, which retains the power of division; permanent, which would stop dividing. Okay. Next, meristematic tissues can be again on the basis of two different criteria. They can be of certain types, like the meristematic tissues on the basis of origin. Okay, when exactly they are arising or originating in the plant body, can be of two types, primary and secondary. Likewise, on the basis of position, that means where exactly, in which position in the plant body they are being found, they can be of three types: apical, intercalary and lateral. Okay. Likewise, the permanent tissues can also be divided into two categories, simple and complex. Okay, the simple tissues are the tissues made up of one type of cell. Okay, only one type of cell. So in that case, they are of three types: parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. On the other hand, complex tissues means the one that are made up of more than one types of cells. Okay, the tissues made up of more than one type of cell would be called complex tissues, and they can be also of two types, that is xylem and phloem, which are the vascular tissues helping in conduction of materials inside the plant body, right? So with this overview, now going into details would make it much easier for you to understand the chapter. So now finally let's start with the meristems. So now finally let us start with meristems. Okay, see, meristems are mainly certain small and immature cells found in the plant body which are in continuous state of division. That means they will continuously divide and add cells to the plant body, allowing the plant to have unlimited growth, okay, indefinite growth, or which we can also call as open form of growth. Understood? Likewise, the meristems, they are also going to be only present in those part of the plant body which would be showing growth. So in the growing regions of the plant, meristems has to be present. So the primary body of the plant or the growth of the plant will be completely brought about by meristems. See, the plants, they, unlike animals, they continuously grow throughout their life, right? They never stop their growth. So why they are able to grow throughout their life? And that's only because of meristems. If meristems would not have been there, continuous or indefinite growth of the plant wouldn't have been possible. Understood that? Fine. So let's see what it is all about. See, these are groups of immature cells which are in continuous state of division. They mainly contribute in the growth of the plant by adding cells to the plant body and hence are present in growing regions of the plant. Next, they allow the plant to show indefinite or open form of growth. That's very obvious because they will continuously keep adding cells to the plant body, hence the plant will be able to grow throughout its life. Okay. Now, just like every other cell, every types of cell in the plant body have different characteristics. Likewise, meristems also have certain specific characteristics. So what are they? See, first, ability to grow and divide. Of course, that's the first and foremost thing that is to be remembered about a meristem. They will always they will show the power of division, ability of division. Okay. Next, they are small and immature cells. So immature cells here means the cells which do not have a specific shape or a specific function. All they know is to divide. Okay. Next, absence of intercellular space means the meristematic cells, when they form the tissue, they are going to be very compactly arranged. There should be no space, okay, any gap between two cells. Okay. Next, cell wall is thin, elastic and cellulose. So all of you know from your class 9 or 10 already that plants, the cell wall is present and cell wall is going to be made up of cellulose. That's the basic or the chief component. Okay. But then not every cell in the plant body would only be possessing cell made up of cellulose only. There can be other depositions as well, like lignin deposition, suberin deposition. So along with cellulose, if lignin or suberin, this kind of materials are also added to the cell wall becomes very tough and very rigid and thick. Okay. But in case of meristems, the cell wall is going to be purely made up of cellulose and it will remain thin and elastic, okay, which will help the cells to continuously keep dividing. Okay. Next, large and prominent nucleus. Now all of you know that in a cell, nucleus is the controlling agent. It controls all cellular activities. Because the meristems are in continuous state of division, that means they are metabolically very active, right? And to control all those metabolic reactions which are happening at a very fast rate, the nucleus also has to be prominent, right? So in that case, this meristematic cells would always possess a large and a prominent nucleus, a conspicuous nucleus, alright? Next, Cytoplasm is going to be dense. Vacuoles are absent or very small. Mostly they are going to be absent. The rate of respiration is very high. Of course, I have already told you the cells of meristans are mainly going to be very active metabolically. Hence, respiratory rate has to be very high. And last is little reserve food. Reserve food or storage of food will be almost absent. So these being the characteristics of meristans, next let us discuss the types of meristans. Now for the classification of meristans. As I have already told you in the flow diagram that meristans on the basis of position or on the basis of origin can be classified differently. Okay, so let's see what the classification is. See, first on the basis of origin, there are two types of meristans, primary meristem and secondary meristem. Okay, primary meristem means the meristans which arise during primary growth phase. See, just like you have a childhood and adulthood, two distinct phases in your life, isn't it? Likewise, in plants also there are two phases. Primary phase when the plant is young or initial phase, and then secondary phase when the plant would mature. So those meristans which are present in the plant body from the very beginning of its lifetime, okay, that means from initial phase of its lifespan, from that those meristans, they will be known as primary meristans. The meristans which will arise during primary or initial growth phase. Understood? So similarly, secondary meristans would also similarly have the same meaning. Means the one which will arise during secondary growth phase, means the meristans which will not be present in the plant body from the very beginning. They will arise later on, later to the primary meristans. Understood that? Fine. So this is what it is. See, primary meristans, they arise early in the life of the plant and gives rise to primary plant body. That means initial plant body, that the primary growth that will take place, that is going to be occurring by the help of primary meristans. Secondary meristem on the other hand, they arise later than primary meristans and are responsible for formation of secondary tissues, particularly the woody ones. Now this is very important. Do remember, the secondary meristans, whatever growth they would give rise to in the plant body, would usually be forming or mostly be forming wood. Okay, wood formation is going to be marked by secondary growth, marked as secondary growth. Okay, that means whenever you see that in a plant body from the very beginning, when the plant is very short or very young, do you see that the plant has started forming wood? No, right? Wood will start forming only after a specific growth phase has been reached. A plant after growing up till a particular limit only will start showing wood formation. So wood formation is completely going to be occurring by the help of secondary meristans. Do remember. Now a question might be arising in your mind that ma'am, all plants, they don't form wood, right? So they would not like, if in case of a plant do not form wood, aren't they going to possess secondary meristans? The answer is yes. The plants which do not have wood or do not form wood, they of course do not have secondary meristans, or in them secondary growth is going to be absent. Understood that? Okay. So now let us start with the next criteria, that is on the basis of position. Okay. So on the basis of position in the plant body, we can again have three types of meristans. First, apical meristem. Apical meristem means the meristams present at the apex, okay, at the tip. Fine. So see, they are found at the apex or tips of the root, shoot or branches. Understood? The name itself, apical means apex. So the meristams found at the tip of the root or shoot would be known as the apical meristams. Now they are of course going to be again of two types. If present at the root tip, we will call it root apical meristem. When present at the shoot tip, we will call it shoot apical meristem. Understood? Now, they also allow primary growth or increase in length. Okay, they allow primary growth or increase in length of the plant axis and will also give rise to axillary buds. Now, what actually will happen, you see, especially in case of shoot apical meristams, the meristams present at the shoot tip. They will continuously divide and add cells to the plant body, but a few cells would be cut off and they would accumulate at the axil of the leaf. So those meristems which will gather at the axil of the leaf, those meristems will later on give rise to axillary bud. So do remember, apical meristem is responsible for formation of axillary buds. Okay. Now next, intercalary meristems. Intercalated means in between. Okay, like as if sandwiched between. Okay, so intercalary meristems means meristems which are intercalated in between permanent tissues. Suppose in the plant body, this is one layer of permanent tissue and this is another layer of permanent tissue. In between, there remains a layer of meristematic tissue. So that meristematic tissue in between two permanent layers would be termed as intercalary meristems. Why? Because it is intercalated between two layers of permanent tissues. Now let me tell you how it would happen. Okay. Suppose this is the plant body and this being the shoot tip where meristems are present, the shoot apical meristems are present. So they are continuously dividing and adding cells in this direction. That means all these cells, okay, all of this, the cells present in these regions, they are also product of meristems after all, right? But after a while, okay, after a particular while, the cells, the old cells which were deposited from the shoot apical meristems, which have now turned old, they will start becoming permanent. What is the meaning of being permanent? The meaning is that, first of all, a permanent cell means a cell which will no more divide. It will lose its power of division. Now it will take up a specific shape and start performing a specific function. Understood? So what is happening? All these cells, they were arising from the meristem itself, isn't it? So that means all of them are meristematic cells only. But later on, when they stop dividing, they would become old and they would now be called as a permanent cell, right? So suppose these all, they have all turned permanent. They have stopped dividing and they have started doing a specific job or a function. So they are all permanent. But actually they were what? Before becoming permanent, they were what? They were meristematic, right? So now, suppose accidentally, all these cells are permanent, but accidentally in between one layer, it suppose could not convert into permanent cells. They could not stop dividing and they remained meristematic. They were already meristematic and they have now turned permanent. But accidentally a layer within could not become permanent, so it has remained meristematic. So now how it is looking like? It is looking like meristems intercalated between two layers of permanent tissues or not, right? This is what is known as intercalary meristem. Is that clear, all of you? Okay. Now here they also allow growth in length. So just like apical meristem, the function of the intercalary meristem is also that they would allow the length of the plant, like growth as per the length of the plant. For example, grass. Like in grass, which are continuously grazed by the cattle, isn't it? So when the grass is being feeded upon by the cattle, don't you think the apical meristem, specifically the shoot apical meristem, is continuously lost? Even after the shoot apical meristem, which is responsible for growth in length, is continuously lost, you will see that within a few days the grass will grow back again, right? It will again grow in length. How is it growing in length without the shoot apical meristem? Because it already possesses certain intercalary meristems. Even if the shoot apical meristem is not present, the intercalary meristems would then allow the grass to regenerate, to again get back to its original form. Understood this? Fine. Now, next, lateral meristems. As the name itself suggests, they are mainly present along the lateral sides of the root and shoot. So if this is, suppose again, the plant body, okay, the plant body, suppose I'm making it again, this is the plant body, and in the plant body, on the lateral sides, on the sides, laterally, the meristems which would be present, they would be termed as lateral meristems. Okay. So all this while apical and intercalary that we have discussed, you have come to know that they will allow the plant to grow in length. But lateral meristems, they would allow the plant to grow in girth, in diameter, because they would be allowing the plant to have a like radially, they would start depositing cells radially in the plant body, allowing the plant to grow not in length but in transverse way or in the diametric way. Understood that? So see this, they do not occur in all plants and allow secondary growth. Now this is very, very important. Secondary growth or wood formation, I just now told you, secondary growth we can directly or commonly call as wood formation, and not all plants show wood formation, right? So in that case, lateral meristems which allow secondary growth or wood formation do not occur in every kind of plant body. Apical meristem, intercalary meristem are present in all types of plants, but the lateral meristems are only present in certain plants. And mostly what kind of plants? The dicots. Secondary meristems, or sorry, lateral meristems are mostly found in the dicots. They are not usually found in the monocots. Understood this? Fine. So types. Lateral meristems can be of three types: intrafascicular vascular cambium, interfascicular vascular cambium, and cork cambium. See, intrafascicular vascular cambium, it's primary in origin, but interfascicular vascular cambium or cork cambium, they are secondary in origin. Means all three being lateral meristems, but then this first one will remain in the plant body from the early or initial growth phase. From the beginning of the plant's life cycle itself, it would be present. But the later two, they would only arise in the plant body when the plant has matured or when it has entered the secondary growth phase. They won't be present from the very beginning or from the initial phase. Understood that? So this being our entire discussion regarding meristems, now next we'll be discussing regarding permanent tissues. Okay, but permanent tissues we'll discuss in the next class. Let it be up till this for today's class. Thank you.